Green Book is a comedy-drama film based on a true story that's set in 1962, and that's about a working-class Italian-American bouncer named Tony Vallelonga, who's from an Italian-American neighborhood in the Bronx, and who is hired to be the driver and bodyguard of a world-class African-American classical pianist named Don Shirley on a 2-month national concert tour going from Manhattan all the way down to the Deep South, the most racist, cultural, and geographic sub-region of the United States. The Green Book of the title refers to the guide that existed about the few establishments that were safe for black people to go to back in the 60s. Confronted with racism, there is danger lurking around everywhere, and these two must set aside their differences in order to make it through safely and successfully on their journey. This is the first film to be directed solely by Peter Farrelly, one half of the Farrelly brothers, who are mostly known for their comedies, and are known to have this sort of tendency to put very serious actors to play opposite very comedic ones in their films. Like how Jim Carrey played opposite Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber, how Jim Carrey played opposite Renee Zellweger in Me, Myself and Irene, how Jack Black played opposite Gwyneth Paltrow in Shallow Hal, how Matt Dillon played opposite to all the rest of the cast in There's Something About Mary, and etc, etc. And not only is this the first film to be directed only by one of the brothers, and not only is it a film based on a true story and it has this more of a dramatic approach to it, he is also doing something quite different with the casting as well, because here we have two very serious actors who are playing something that's unlike anything they've ever played before, the complete opposite of how they are as real people in life. Viggo Mortensen, the person, the actor, actually seems to be quite intelligent. He seems to be quite educated and cultured. He's very serious. I think he speaks like 5 different languages, for Christ's sake. And here in the film, he's actually playing the complete opposite of that. He is playing actually quite a dumbass. He's playing this very vulgar guy who's pretty uneducated, pretty childish, and even quite ill-mannered sometimes. He has a complete lack of any sign of culture or class. Yet at the same time, there are a lot of positive things to say about him as well. I mean, he seems pretty nice, he's pretty sweet and humble, he is not judgmental in the slightest, and he is pretty funny and likable and sociable, but at the same time, he really sucks at doing anything that doesn't involve using his fists. Mahershala Ali's character in this film is pretty much the complete opposite of Tony. I mean, this guy is just incredibly well-spoken, incredibly talented and classy and gentle and cerebral and just intelligent all around. Allegedly, he is one of the best at what he does as a musician, as a pianist, but we get to find out throughout the film, through their conversations, that for him getting to where he is as a virtuoso pretty much came with a major price in his life, because this guy has been pretty much sheltered and isolated all throughout his life. He could never really find a way to fit into any community. You know, a black man, an African-American man, a virtuoso, playing classical music in the 60s, well, that was something pretty unheard of. So he finds himself in this position when he is too black for white people to accept him, obviously the only reason being his skin color, of course, but he's also too white to be accepted by black people because he's just too sophisticated, just too high class and too cultured for most black people to be able to accept him. So he pretty much becomes kind of a loner, and this is basically the emotional crux of the film that kind of does reach its climax during like the third act of the movie. The whole film is basically this pretty typical buddy movie in which two guys who you wouldn't really expect would have anything to do with each other have to work together and even become friends in the process. And it's very interesting how it's actually Don Shirley who in the beginning considers that he is the one who should and could teach Tony a few things, especially when it comes to manners, seeing how ill-mannered and how much of a man-child he actually is. But as things progress, he actually realizes that, hey, he can learn a thing or two from Tony as well, because Tony is pretty street smart. I mean, he does have the skills and the knowledge necessary for dealing with modern urban life, especially with the more negative and the more criminal aspects of it. He is a married man, he is a happily married man and a family man who can really keep his family together. That's something that Don could never really learn how to do. I mean, he is divorced and he doesn't even keep in touch with his only flesh and blood left, his brother. So Don is sort of this character who is kind of naive and also hopelessly, I mean foolishly hopeless, I would say, while Tony is sort of this character who is very realist. I mean, he really doesn't panic when things don't go as smoothly as he would expect them to. The charm of the film pretty much comes from the interactions and the conversations that take place between these two characters, of which there are a lot. I mean, it's definitely a cultural exchange. It's definitely the sort of experience kind of acts as a kind of wake-up call for these two guys, and it really gives rise to a lot of very funny situations. One of the funniest sequences in the film is when Tony is threatening to throw some Kentucky Fried Chicken in the backseat of the car because Don is just finding it way too difficult and disgusting to have to eat eat anything without any utensils or plates. Don, on the other hand, gives Tony a lot of shit for littering and for talking in a vulgar manner and for almost sort of kind of trying to steal something he found on the ground outside of a store that was selling that particular item. These two guys give a lot of shit to each other, and it's basically two worlds clashing here. There's a very interesting moment in which Don tells Tony that since he is now his personal bodyguard and driver, both of them will going to be considered to be special guests at these events at which Don will have to perform, and both of them will have to be introduced by their names. And he says that Tony Vallelonga is just too much of a worldly and too much of a complicated name. Why don't we shorten it? Why don't we change it to Tony Valet? And Tony's reaction is just priceless. He says that, no, fuck no. I mean, you have all of these high-class, intelligent people with all of their speaking skills, and you're telling me they can't pronounce my name? I mean, fuck them. If anyone has a problem with my name, they can shove it off their ass, or I'm going to have to just wait outside. And I think Tony is making an excellent point right there. It really shows the personalities of these two characters, because Don is definitely willing to bend himself for society if that means that society will see him in a better light. Tony, on the other hand, no, he does not do that. He does not compromise. He might not be the smartest or the most clever guy in the world, but his integrity is definitely intact. There are tons of differences between these two personalities. There's also a very interesting moment in which Tony is talking about the difference between being a liar, something he does not consider himself to be, and a bullshit artist. He says that he does definitely not lie. The only thing he is really talented at is talking people into doing things they don't really want to do by bullshitting them. So Tony is definitely more of this morally gray guy, while Don is definitely, I think, socially gray, as I would put it. He is definitely, you can really sense that he has been sheltered and isolated. He's definitely a little bit awkward, he's definitely a little bit rigid, he's definitely a little bit too serious for his own good. The focus of this film is definitely the relationship between these two guys and their differences, and I think that's a good thing. This is definitely a film that's about racism, but that really doesn't want to show you anything violent or all too upsetting. It in fact goes out of its way not to be that. It actually goes out of its way to kind of sugarcoat this otherwise extremely sensitive topic. And I didn't mind it because I definitely think this is much more of a comedic film rather than a dramatic one. It's definitely incredibly lighthearted, and I enjoyed it immensely. I mean, the actors are great and the characters are very well written. It was quite a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. So my question to you guys would be, what are some of your favorite buddy movies? Really curious to know about your answers. Don't forget to leave them down below. Thanks for watching my review, folks. As always, I highly appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell and that notification thingy so you can see future videos I post. And what can I say? I hope I'll see you again soon. And until then, don't forget to stay cool, stay awesome, and have a pleasant evening, or morning, or night, or whatever it is you're doing wherever you are in the world, okay? Thanks for watching again, people. Goodbye.